the man who is always a pleasure to have on our show, and I watched his 23-minute breakdown of the franchise this morning, knowing that Tim Jenkins was coming on the program today. And Bears fans, I know you need to feel better about things, and Tim Jenkins is here to do exactly that for you. Tim, welcome back to the CHGO Bears Podcast. We appreciate you making time.
I'm pumped to be back. Adam, I know you do way more than teams, but I can see your blood boil when teams is messed up. You know, as a special teams coordinator, I know it fires you up.
Well, that's the thing, Tim. Like, and they're in the comments right now. They're like, how can you say 15 yards is obviously if they call a penalty, it matters. And that probably would have been the difference because earlier in the game, they kicked, shorter field goal. You get more loft on it. It's going through the uprights. I'm still more upset that, you just didn't block it correctly. You know what I mean? Like that's where I'm caught. So I get it. People are upset. There should have been a penalty. Matty Eberflus, they're probably all upset. But also, if you just block it better, it's not even a conversation.
I wouldn't have called it. By the way, just reminding everybody that Tim's YouTube page is All Things QB. Would you have called that, Tim, if you were an official on the field and you're standing right there? Do you think you would have blown the whistle?
I would have called everything that would have helped my Bears parlay. Anything that would have helped my Bears parlay, I'd have called it. No, man, I just I don't know. I know I haven't been in it as long as you guys have from a Bears perspective, but I was thinking to myself when I first started covering Justin Fields and I started, doing film breakdowns and tweeting about it. And I was like, man, these people in the comments are so angry one way or another. Right. And I was like, why? And now after being a part of this for let's call it 3 years, I get it, man. I'm fired up. I live in Denver. I'm all pissed off. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be a Bears fan, and we just find brutal ways to lose the game, and then we send a guy up there to tell people how the second to last play in Washington didn't matter, and the second to last play to decide not to gain any more yards doesn't matter, and which I just think makes it even more miserable.
Well, let's start there because I know I would definitely want to get into talking about what Caleb Williams and Thomas Brown were able to do to turn the corner in this game, but we haven't gotten a chance to talk to you here in about a month or so. And there was this 3-game stretch, and there still is, where, Caleb Williams hasn't been able to, throw a pass into the end zone, and they weren't able to score a touchdown for 3 games just as an offense as a total. So let's start with where Shane Waldron went wrong and where Caleb Williams went off the tracks from the Jacksonville game where they're 4-2. He almost throws 5 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden it just all goes awry.
I think that's so let's back up the Jacksonville game. I think that's the craziest part of this whole thing because coming out of the Jacksonville game, you saw a lot of creative stuff, right? Everybody remembers, hey, we faked the double, we orbit motion, we faked 2 swing screens, and we hit Kmet, right? Everybody remembers that one. But to me, the one that stood out was, Jacksonville kicks it into too high down tight in the red zone, and they run Keenan Allen on this little 5-yard under. We call it a search where he fakes like he's coming in on that 5 yards. And then he goes and, takes the middle and you got a great back shoulder throw to him. To me, that's innovation, right? I know that the double swing screen go is sexy, but to me, a true innovation is, hey, we know on 3rd and whatever, we're going to get this coverage and we're going to attack in a specific way. That's what you get paid, in my opinion, as an OC to be able to do, right? Hey, we know what they're coming with this from an analytics perspective. Here's how we're going to attack it. Then I don't know what happened, right? They get it. They fly back home. They have the bye week, and you think we're going to be rolling with creativity. And it was, to me, some of the worst 1st and 10 type calls to get a young quarterback going. And then it would compound where all of a sudden we're in 2nd and 10. All right, we run the ball. All right, we're 3rd and 12. It was just compounding poor decisions. There's a couple of games in there where you could say hey, game flow really sucked from a standpoint of everybody's going to have those games where it's you can't find a rhythm. The other team's holding the ball. Hey, we got to find a way to win. That was Washington to me, right? Washington was one of those where I could kind of throw some of the calls out and say the game flow was so horrible, but at the end of the day, we had a chance to win at the end. Our defense kind of lets us down, right? But then when you take those last few games as a true body of work, you see hey, where'd the boot action go? Where'd the fact that we used to use DJ Moore and Rome as our slider, get them the ball with space? Where'd all these things go? And that's where I think we were able to get back on track a little bit. Using Cole Kmet finally Like, this was the first sail route that I remember Cole Kmet being involved with since week 2 last year when Justin Fields missed him being wide open, right? Like, that's legitimately the last time I remember seeing Cole Kmet being utilized on a progression. So we finally hit him this week on that. We utilize him in the quick game. DJ Moore, I don't know about you guys. Every time I turn on the tape, I feel like DJ Moore takes 4 people to tackle him from a gritty competitive standpoint. It took us 11 weeks to throw him this many screens, I think is also a crying shame, or get him the ball on jet sweep. Like, DJ Moore to me is cut more from the Debo cloth than he is from a true receiver, right? And I think there's a lot we could learn from, hey, let's find creative ways to get him the football. So I do think there were some things corrected. Where Shane went wrong, I just think god-awful sequencing. I think lack of creativity. And I do think that he started to call football games a lot like I think the culture is over there, which is we prioritize ending on a kick. We prioritize complimentary football. And what we lack is like true competitive grit of, I actually don't care if this makes me look bad. Like, I want to find a way to win the game versus, hey, we kept it close and we lost. Like, I just am uninterested in that. And I think he started to call games more from that than truly how you have to be aggressive in the NFL nowadays.
Tim, one of the things that we've been hearing, and if anyone tunes in the 85 tonight, I know Cole talks about this tonight too on the show, just the speed at which calls were coming in on Sunday, the communication just being better overall. Can you, I mean, it sounds so obvious, but can you kind of actually put that in like practicality of like how much that can help a rookie quarterback like Caleb when everything's just faster?
Well, don't even think about Caleb. Think about Goff. I don't know if you guys remember before he got to Detroit and now like everybody thinks he's, who he is. But do you guys remember when McVay took over for Goff? The biggest thing McVay said was, hey, I get this call into his headset so darn quick because then as he's walking up to the line of scrimmage, I can help talk to him about what's going on, right? So to me, just the standpoint of, hey, we're going to have some more communication before the headset cuts off while you're at the line of scrimmage and or walking up to it, which is great for a reminder standpoint. Everyone's like, oh, well, Caleb's got to know everything. It's like, dude, everybody thinks you get one binder. Like, I got cut after a cup of coffee. I have 12 freaking binders from the Rams, right? Like, you want to talk about like that's 3 weeks of it. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's like, I don't know. I think that's huge. And the fact of, if you can get to the line of scrimmage, hey, I can actually process through some more of this information. We can get into better protections. My receivers can start to see, hey, if we have an option route here, hey, what am I kind of looking at coverage-wise? And then the other thing is like the amount of confidence it gives you as a player when you feel like your coach is actually a call ahead versus like you're hearing or whatever on the headset. And I don't want to make fun of anybody, but like, when you're handshaking and you're the guy just calling it, like, I mean, that's a rough situation to like really exude confidence in a team. And like, listen, you got guys, you can fool Caleb, right? I know we all think Caleb's, really mature and all this stuff, which he is, but you can fool a rookie. It's hard to fool DJ Moore. It's hard to fool Keenan Allen. These guys have seen coaching at a high level. It's hard to sit there and tell these guys, hey, I don't believe in scripting, right? Like they just don't buy it and they shouldn't. So to me, it's like, yeah, I think just getting the call in, now you got a little communication with them as you're walking up there, plus the fact that everybody has more time to diagnose, not just the quarterback. We got to remember there's 10 other guys out there that they have to diagnose what's going on too. And it just helps everybody when you get that call in a little bit quicker.
If you had to put a number evaluation on Caleb, 1 to 10, how well you think he's seeing the field right now going through his progressions, where do you come in at?
Yeah, that's first and foremost is a great question. Let me give you an answer that you might like hate, but you might end up loving it. Quick game, I'm gonna give him like an 8 because I do think, and I'm gonna point to one play, which is the third down shallow cross to Rome. Okay, Rome's the third progression. He gets through his first 2. It's a perfectly designed play where, hey, we're gonna stress the corner with this route. Boom, corner jumped it. Okay, guess what? My next inside, he's on a stick. Sam jumped it. Guess what? My shallow cross beats the mic across the face. Boom, I complete it. We move on. So he's an 8 in the quick game. In shot plays downfield right now, like he's a 4 or 5. I don't want that to be like oh my gosh, Caleb can't throw the ball down the field. That's not the critique. The critique is giving it an extra click, making sure like, hey, we call it shot play. We're really giving it a shot. We're putting our eyes in the spot to where, man, I can see this thing and we can work down the progression versus, hey, I'm going to get in, hey, we have sync and I'm going to get to my check down, which there's an argument for it. I just don't think we're aggressive enough with the football when we do call those true shot plays. Thomas, you could kind of see scripted away from it, which I think he's kind of realizing, hey, this might not be our strength currently. But I do think when you talk about quick game to that downfield, like that 10-yard and under, I do think, man, when you see a rookie getting to 3rd and 4th progressions, that 4th down, for crying out loud, he gets to his back on 4th down. He's got a free runner from a linebacker, gets through all 4, gets to his back. Like that's stuff that we're not seeing a lot. Like Bo Nix lit the world on fire last week. You're not seeing that from Bo. But simultaneously, what you are seeing from Bo is, hey, he's going to push the football down the field if a shot play is called. So to me, I think those are the ebbs and flows as a rookie. If I had to tell you, like, coming out of USC, was my worry with Caleb going to be, like, forcing the ball? No, right? I thought he did it too much. So I do think that's something he has in him. We can get back out of him with the right play caller, which I think is obviously going to be priority number 1 when you look at the Bears, what I would assume is going to be a head coaching search after the season.
Well, I mean, and to me, the biggest thing when you talk about what Caleb needs to get better pushing down the field, you brought it up in your latest breakdown here of the game on Sunday, the footwork to Keenan Allen on that throw. I think when you talk about I've just been covering the Bears these last 3 years, and I'm starting to understand it. Part of our culture as fans is to make as many excuses as we possibly can for quarterbacks in their 1st and 2nd year, and then we start to turn on them in their 3rd and 4th year. Everything is the coach's fault and the offensive line's fault at first, and then as more the sample size grows, then we turn to the quarterback. I don't want to make that mistake with Caleb. I think Caleb can be a great quarterback in this league, but I don't want to fall into the trap of constantly making excuses for him. Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus certainly hold accountability. That being said, his footwork all season long, to me, has been his biggest problem on his accuracy, which has been so stunning, specifically on deep balls. So I just am curious to hear your thoughts on why that is, because I know a lot of people talk about the drop not lining up with the routes and all these different excuses. But to me, Caleb needs to control what he can control, and his footwork has to be better.
Here's what so you just brought up a great point. I saw the clip you tweeted out. If that clip is true about let me preface it. It was talking about, hey, how Shane Waldron's not big on tying the feet to the play, right? That's what
with Matt Waldman, right?
Yeah. I would push back on what he commented about DJ Moore, because I don't believe that to be true, and that's just from guys we've had that played with DJ, right? So I want to push that aside. The Waldron piece, I want to address that first. If that's true, where somehow you got hired to work with a rookie quarterback and a question in your interview process wasn't, hey, tell me exactly how you correlate the quarterback's footwork to each progression. Anyone involved in the interview process should be fired. And I'm not big on calling for jobs, because we get to know these guys and it sucks, right? They have we all would hate to lose our job, right? It sucks. But that is such an egregious miss, if true. Now, from there, your point about Caleb has to control what he has to control, that's 100% true. The only thing that I would push back on all about Caleb is I don't think you could point to a time in his career, and I don't think your comment would be, man, his feet are great. So I don't think you could go to USC and say, footwork outstanding. What you could say is, man, he looks clean at times, but Caleb to me is this is such a bad correlation, but he's a driving range quarterback currently. Caleb does everything at an elite level that you're willing to let so much slide, right? You see him like he's DeChambeau in golf. Like he can take a different route to a hole than every other pro. He can do all these things, but then at the end, sometimes you're like left wanting more, right? You have the throw to Komet on the sideline, which is a top throw from this week across the National Football League, followed up with, I miss a curl route, which like we're benching quarterbacks at the high school level for missing that throw, right? So to me, it's like, it's hard for me to say like, man, Caleb needs to control his footwork when I'd be willing to bet you if push came to shove and you locked Caleb in a room and you said, hey, here's the top 90 concepts in the National Football League, what footwork correlates to this play, I would be hard pressed to bet that he goes over 50% on that quiz. I don't think footwork has ever been taught to him as a premium. And I don't think whoever he works with in the offseason or wherever he's at, I don't think that's something they hammer. I think his whole life has been about biomechanic perfection from a throwing standpoint and probably like learning defenses and like, I don't think footwork's been hammered. That's an epidemic across quarterbacking to begin with right now. What happened was Tom Brady put his right foot back. Josh McDaniels put his outside receiver's foot up because they had a bunch of Wes Welker-looking mofos over there who couldn't get deep on a slant. And then now everybody plays with their right foot back because it looks really cool. No one knows why they're doing it, right? Now that's trickled down to the youth level to where I think all these quarterbacks coming up, if you really were to say, hey, if you were to say we're reading Dragon, right? We've got slant arrow. What's the feat to it? What's the progression to it? I think most quarterbacks at a decently high level fail that quiz. And that used to be like elementary school work when I was coming up. Now listen, when I was coming up, none of us could throw. Our feet were great, but my arm was like a water gun compared to what these kids have nowadays. So to me, it's like it's ebbs and flows of quarterbacking. So I do think you're dead on. His footwork has to improve, but Caleb's got to be a pro, and Caleb's got to say, listen, I don't know if you guys can cuss on. I don't know shit about this, right? I need to go find somewhere that does, and I need to work at it. And, to me, it's like, the QB guy up there, it's like that's really what he should be doing, man. You can't let these uber talented kids just go, because what you're going to get is you're going to get a mixed bag of things that are insanely good. And then, hey, we miss a curl route and it's okay. We made up for it on fourth down, but it's not okay, right? Because if you convert that curl route, the offense keeps moving. Guess what? Maybe we score a touchdown there instead of kick a field goal. Then we're not kicking a field goal at the end. So, sorry, that was a really long rant to say you're 100% right. He has to take ownership over his footwork, but I would be like, I would truly put up real money on Caleb not truly knowing how to tie his feet to stuff. And I don't think that's an indictment on Caleb. I just think Lincoln Riley got him, and I don't think Lincoln Riley's a footwork premium guy. I think he's play fast within my offense guy. They're going to bust more coverages than you're going to have to face, and we're going to score points. And I'm willing to bet, like, when you get Caleb Williams in high school, like, you're just happy to be along for the ride, man. Like, there's some kids where it's just like, hey, let's just not mess this kid up. And unfortunately, at some point it catches up, and it's catching up for the Bears right now.
Well, hold on, just to boil down what you just said. How important is it that he becomes that he's able to marry his footwork to the route eventually for him to reach however high he can get to? How important is that? 1 out of 10? Is that 10 out of 10?
It's his number one. If you were to say, Tim, hey, you're tasked with protecting the Bears' investment this offseason, training Caleb, it's the only thing we would work on. I mean that wholeheartedly. We wouldn't talk arm path. We wouldn't talk defense. We would literally talk through, here's the top 180 concepts that the NFL runs. Here's the exact footwork you take to every single one. And if you want a perfect example, listen, I get it. We all like to see Josh Allen's skeleton of what he looked like as a rookie and what he looks like now. And we all like to see, like, oh, he became more rotational, as if that's some, like, astronomical idea that, like, only Neil deGrasse, whatever that guy can knows. It's not, right? Everyone's becoming more rotational. That's how you become more accurate. But look at Josh Allen's footwork difference from the years that he was an inaccurate quarterback that people were going to be ready to run out of Buffalo. And now, I know that we get excited about the 4th and 1 that he scrambles and beats Mahomes. But if you watch both of those guys' feet, when they run the mag concept where we have an in runner with an option underneath, They are always one skip, both of them. If you watch Caleb, he takes a 3 hitch right now. That's not like, Caleb's, it's just not good football. And that's not his fault, in my opinion. In my opinion, someone somewhere along the lines told him 3 hitch, probably at USC, because USC knows, guess what? I just recruited these 3 5-star kids to run this route. If we're late, who cares? He's going to be open by 6 steps, right? So you take a longer drop, because it's at the college level, when you have better athletes, it's worse to be early, right? Because if you're early, maybe you miss the guy. He's going to be wide open. That's why, in my opinion, Alabama quarterbacks are always like a step behind when they get to the NFL, because usually their footwork is like, in my opinion, a clock step too late, because they'd rather see it and throw it than anticipate and throw it. And it just non-existent in the NFL. You have to anticipate. You have to be on time with your eyes and your feet.
Just one quick follow-up on this. How long do you think it would take him to master what you're talking about with a good coach?
You could do it in like, this isn't a joke. Everyone always like, oh, Tim joking. You could do it in season. You could do it in the next 3 weeks. What you have to do is you have to correlate our 30 concepts this week. You have to create a read sheet for him, dial up all the footwork progressions, and then you have to hammer it. And you have to make sure that when he goes out and makes a great play, not using the footwork, that you don't say, hey, man, it's all right. You have to, at that point, MF him. Here's my thing. As a coach, you're either going to coach these guys to be great, or you're going to be the guy sitting there trying to crack a joke with him as he rolls his eyes as you're on your way out the door. That's what it is. They're not going to turn on Caleb before. Waldron, probably, DJ Moore said it, too friendly, right? You got to admit, you got to know what it is. Get in there, coach these guys up, and then just push Caleb. Listen, hey, at the end of the day, you're going to probably look back and you're going to be like, hey, that Tim Jenkins guy, he was always a dick to me. But guess what? You were great, right? I'm sure Tom Brady's fine with thinking Bill Belichick was always a jerk when he sits with all his rings, right? So to me, it's like, you just hammer these progressions. You don't let great plays then be a reason for, hey, we didn't take the drop. The drops have to be a premium and 7-on-7 and team, and he'd be fine. And what's realistic is he's probably going to try to attempt to fix it this offseason. Now, we better get a great guy in the building at the head of it, and he better be selective with who he puts around himself, because it hasn't been fixed yet. And so to me, it's like, that's my big worry, is that it continues to be something that we let slide, and then we're talking about this again week 11 next year.
All right. Real quick, first of all, I think that one thing we've heard about Thomas Brown already is that he is more direct than Shane Waldron. Yep. So hopefully some of those things you're talking about are, started last week.
This is great stuff, Tim.
Yeah, because, guys are going to try to get away with things, not because they're not listening, but because they have habits, and you got to break those habits. And if you're going to enable them to do some of these things, you have, you're in the NFL now. No, you do it this way. And so I think this goes along with what you're talking about, Tim.
You have to get these notes and then text them to your wife or girlfriend, and then read the notes and then internalize that and execute it.
Tim's very confused about what you just said because he missed the first 5 minutes of the show. That's okay. I do have to remind people. Okay, I have one more question for you, Tim. Hang on there. We have to remind people to become a diehard. ALLCHGO.com/diehard. For those of you watching on the fast channels, the program will be ending here, but you can always watch in full on YouTube. But ALLCHGO.com/diehard is where you get all the merch, discounts, all our bonus content,
free T-shirt when you become one immediately,
our Discord, all that. We still gotta get Tim Jenkins a T-shirt, I believe.
I know, so we do. We gotta send him. We've been slacking on that. It is.
Loser, your fault.
It's my fault. Yeah. And of course, the tailgate.
All right, Tim. I want to know what's next. So they made progress. Great. Hopefully they build on it. But how do they build on it? Because here's the thing: Brian Flores is coming to town, and it just always seems like a bad matchup for a rookie quarterback because they're going to throw so much at him. There's going to be bullets flying, and you're going to have to read all this stuff, and it's not like what you've seen this whole season. But that being said, in that system that you're going up against, there's usually opportunities to exploit it. and to use some of the great talents that Caleb has for big explosives. So I love what they did, all these sensical things that they did to get back on track. But what I'm really curious this week against this matchup against the Vikings is what's next.
Yeah, I think to me what's next is I think you got to continue with where they were getting the ball out of the hand hot, right, to DJ Moore on those screens, continue with the quick game. The only thing I'd like to see sprinkled, the only criticism I really had of Thomas Brown after, typical Bears fashion, right, he finds out on a Tuesday versus a Monday that he's going to, but whatever. So the only thing I really have for him is I'd like to see a couple more true boots because I think he did a great job. I think he's done a great job in the boot game, Caleb, right? So a couple more true boots. And I would love to see 2 or 3 true, hey, shot plays off a run action. Like, to me, if we can continue on that path of, I thought they were protecting things better. I thought they were getting things out of their hand better. To me, if we can just a couple more true shot plays, man, that's something that I would love to see. I think that's next. But, man, if they can continue to protect, there was a clip where it's like, they ran that double A with the backers where the backers twist and the center took one and our back took the air out of the line of scrimmage, picked up the other. Like, that was pretty darn good, right? And the only thing that's changed is Waldron to Brown, right? So to me, it's like you got to give them credit for, I feel like everyone was playing at a little higher level of, hey, here's what we can anticipate seeing. I do think they will definitely try to heat up Caleb more, especially if they get into those condensed sets again, which are always, like, problematic, right? They can show you a simulated pressure from the front side and bring it weak, and then you're hot off of really just adding one, which is a problem. But I do think that if we can sit there and we can kind of say, like, hey, a couple more shot plays, a couple more in the boot game, we might be pretty darn good.
All right. Great stuff as always, Tim. We love having you on.
I got one more question on the way out here because you had the huge packet from the NFL. Do you have anything from Huffnagel in your Calgary Stampeders days? Did Huffnagel?
Coach Huff, that's a good boy now. We had the CFL was funny. Here's the only CFL story I'll give you guys, and you guys kick me out. When I got to the CFL, I had played for Schottenheimer in the NFL, which is like, Sam Bradford was our starter. It was more like, hey, dude, you're from Fort Lewis. Nobody even thinks you'll make the team, which proved to be correct. You just catch up to us. So I studied everything, right? Like, hey, you're going to get 2 reps. Don't mess them up. Then I got to the CFL in that expanded roster period, and I thought to myself, man, I got to attack the game just like I did there, and I'm studying everything. And we had a QC walk in, and he goes, Tim, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out. He goes, listen, buddy, just motion them and find the American receiver on the Canadian DB, and you're going to be all right. So that, I figured out in a quick way, we're just trying to get an American on a Canadian. Listen, I don't mind Canadians. They're great. They're great people, but not good in coverage, right? We're not good cover guys. So, if we can get one of them on our receiver, we're going to be all right. That's what they told me. And I got cut from that league too. So I don't know if that was good advice, but listen, I love coaching and I love talking with you guys.
Hey,
you'll never get cut from our roster. I can promise you that.
See, in hockey, do they do the opposite?
Listen,
oh yeah,
they put the Canadian. They're like they try to get the
where's
Canadian
the
on the American. See, it works both ways.
It's like Waterboy when they're lining up for the onside kick and they're like trying to find the one guy.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize for your athletic career when you're talking to us 3 here, Tim. This guy couldn't make.
Well, I'm a world-class golfer, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. You got 2 mediocre athletes, and then my amazing stuff. But we don't need to talk about me and my.
But you just did.
Let's go hoop right now.
Bring it on. Let's go. Tim, I got videos from the trip to Arizona if we could show those too.
Yeah, I wasn't in those.
Schooled.
All things QB, you must be subscribed to the YouTube channel. The breakdowns are outstanding. Tim, thanks again, man.
I appreciate you, fellas. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim.
All right.
We all silly like the mayor.